In the legal world, there is a combination of forces that feed a corrupt and suffocating legal system for attorneys. Law schools, law professionals, judges, and even the firms themselves for whom you work create a system, a matrix, if you will, that is nothing like what you thought when you passed the bar exam. The purpose of this podcast is to help you escape this legal matrix, leading you out of the proverbial desert to be free of the bondage of the matrix. Hosted by Bryce D. Nyer, attorney at law with over 30 years experience in the trenches of civil and criminal litigation at the state, federal, and international levels. He's a highly accomplished and resourceful legal professional, a true master of his craft, and he's here to help you get your life back. Here's your host, Bryce D. Nyer.
All right. This is Bryce D. Nyer coming at you live from Fayetteville, North Carolina, and we are here for another episode of Escape the Legal Matrix. Woo! And we've got our law firm mascot in here, Drake, our Labrador Retriever, who has been hounding me all day for food. This dog, I tell you, Labrador Retrievers, they could eat forever. I'm telling you, they're the one breed of dog that they're just insatiable. I was watching a special on them about a week ago or so, and it was talking about they have some genetic trait or something where they are not satisfied. They're always hungry. I didn't find it really amazing. I found it to be true. But hey, we've got a great episode tonight. We're going to talk about the subject of you don't have anything to prove to anyone. Now, why am I bringing that subject up? Well, I'll tell you why I'm bringing that subject up. So about, maybe a week or two ago, I was down at the coast, and I'm down the coast quite a bit these days. I'm working between two different counties and some other matters. But anyway, it was said to me, we were talking about the future, my work future, my life, everything. And she said to me, listen, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You've already accomplished quite a bit in your life, and you kind of fail to take into account those things that you have accomplished, and you don't give yourself enough credit for those things. And I thought about that, and we continue to discuss that as I look to where I'm heading in the future, personally and professionally. And I imagine that at least talking to a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends, a lot of people are saying the same thing. Where am I in my life? Where am I going? What does it look like, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road? And I also noticed it with a lot of people that retire, and I have had some friends that retired very young, in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And all of a sudden they're like, where's the purpose of my life? What am I going to do after I don't do what I do full time? And again, retirement doesn't mean that you don't do anything. It could be you just shift from one vocation to another or doing something else. So we were talking about all these things as it pertained going down the domains of body, being, balance, and business, and where I've been, where I am now, and the future. And it really hit me. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. There's nothing to prove in my life. There's nothing to prove. And I thought about that, and I think too many times people are seeking to prove something for the approval of others. And the reality is there just aren't people sitting around all day thinking about you. They're not. They're thinking about the things in their own lives, whether it's money, whether it's religion, whether it's marriage, whether it's divorce, whether it's life, death, new child. People are not sitting around thinking about what I'm doing or my future. They're just not. And they're not sitting there wondering when I'm going to hit the next milestone or what's the next thing that I'm going to prove. And the minute you can realize that, you're able to let go of a lot that really bogs you down. I have seen too often in this legal matrix, again, some of you call it the legal profession. but it's a legal matrix. That's what it is. That most lawyers cannot surrender their identity as a lawyer when they stop practicing law, they retire, or whatever it is they do, that they're so attached to this ID tag of being a lawyer. Well, I'm going to tell you something about me. I don't have that problem. In fact, most of the time when I meet people, I really hate to tell people what I do when they ask me, what do you do? And the minute I say I'm a lawyer, then they go into, what kind of law do you do? And of course, if you mention anything about family law, oh, well, I need to talk to you. Or I need a lawyer. And I'm like, I really, I'm just chilling out here. I don't want to talk about it. Okay. And that may sound rude, but when you're just trying to chill and have dinner with friends or just, get away from it all, it's really kind of the last thing that you want to talk about. And, I just sit there and I think about that. And I'm like, if I left this profession tomorrow, and of course I want to leave it voluntarily, I don't want, to be suspended or just barred or anything or put in prison or anything of that nature. It's not what I'm saying. But if I left this profession tomorrow, I would not miss it. I wouldn't. And I wouldn't be stuck with, I have to tell everybody I was a lawyer or I am a lawyer. I just don't have that issue. I don't have that problem. But a lot of my friends in this matrix, they do. They don't know how to separate this identity at all as they move forward in their lives. And I'm looking, I'm like, what is it you want to prove? I was having this conversation this week with one of my colleagues. He's young. He's only been out of law school a few years. And he's in this major trial right now as I'm recording this, the jury trial. And he's just really wrapped around the axle about the opposing counsel and the case and everything. And I'm just sitting there having these conversations like, what is it you're trying to prove? Just cite the facts without the feelings, apply it to the law. I mean, what you may not like the other attorney, but I'm like, the other attorney doesn't care about you. But you're letting yourself get upset because you identify too much as to what you are. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be zealous in your work as an advocate for your client. But what I'm saying is when all you think about is I'm a lawyer, or I'm this, and this, you begin to lose yourself. You begin to become too ingratiated in the legal matrix where it won't let go of you. And that's all you do, and it consumes you. And it starts to erode in these domains of body, being, balance, and business, which ultimately destroys your fulfillment. And this was happening to me until, a couple of years ago when that was it. I drew the line in the sand. And I've said many times, as I've said tonight, even on this podcast, I could walk away tomorrow. I would not miss walking in the courtroom. I would not miss the majority of my colleagues. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I'm just not hung up on, and you should not be so hung up on being identified with whatever your vocation is. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be proud of what you've accomplished. But again, at the end of the day, you don't have to prove anything to anybody. You know what you've accomplished. You know the pros of those things in your life. You know the cons of those things in your life. What is there to prove? What is there to prove? No, I get it. Like in a criminal case, you want to prove your innocence. I completely understand that. Or if you're the prosecutor, you want to prove your case that the defendant is guilty. I get those kind of things, but I'm talking about your life. I mean, at the end of the day, the life expectancy of a man is probably in their 70s, maybe early 80s. Women today, at least in the United States, in their 80s. So you're going to start working full time maybe at 16, maybe go in the military, maybe go to school, and then you're going to work in some career from, 22 to everybody's like, I'm going to retire at 65 or whatever age it is. And so the bulk of your life is going to be spent in some certain vocation. And then when you're no longer doing it, if you stay tied to it and that's all you identify with, you're going to have a really hard time moving forward to be free. And I thought about that, 2 weeks ago, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, having that conversation. And she was right. I just absolutely do not have to prove anything to anybody. There's nothing to prove to anybody anymore. So tonight, I really want you to think about where in your world, do you need to let go? Where in your world do you need to stop, with this identifying with whatever your vocation is all the time? Because there will become a point in time when you will leave a vocation or profession. Maybe because it's just time to go, time to retire, you're fed up, whatever the reason is. And I've just thought about this. It's just weighed on my mind. And it's kind of a liberating feeling when you can just let go. And I have some friends in the military. And look, I was an Army officer. I was privileged to be an Army officer. My country gave me great opportunities. And I have friends that retired after 30 years. And, there's nothing wrong with looking back, but some of them have still not made the shift, the transition from their time of 30 years to a different life. And they get pulled back in, and I'm just like, look, we get it. You're a retired sergeant major, you're a retired warrant officer, you're a retired, whatever it is you retired at, rank or whatever. It's great. It's good to look back, and there's nothing wrong with it to feel good about your service to your country or the people that you served with. But like anything, when it's time to cross over, when it's time to cross the river, it's time to cross over from a land of bondage into the land of freedom, you have to let go of a certain identity. You just have to let go, because you're going to get a new identity. The old you is going to die, and there's going to be a new you. So I want you to ask yourself that question: where in your world are you hanging on to an identity that doesn't serve you anymore? Where are you holding on to where you feel you still have to prove something? When really you've accomplished a lot. Sit down and write down what you've accomplished. You would be really surprised when you sit down and make a list of the things that you've done. Like raising your kids and educating them, or maybe your workout program, or maybe your finances, whatever it is. Write it down, what you've accomplished. Don't focus on the negative. Focus on who you are right now and what you have accomplished. And let go of the identity that may be holding you back. Because again, you don't have anything to prove. You've accomplished a lot already. All right, this is Bryce Nyer. We've been coming at you live from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg, where every day men and women down in uniform do what? They go wage war and fight the enemies that so often seek to take away the very freedoms that we do what? We so often take for granted. This is Bryce and Drake, the Labrador Retriever, and we are out of here.